I traveled back to the day Xu Huiqing came to my house to propose marriage. Everyone thought that I, this spoiled young lady, would mock him and order him to be beaten out with sticks. He himself never thought I would accept. Yet, amidst those gloating gazes, I smiled sweetly at him and said, "Xu Huiqing, I've accepted the betrothal gifts. Get ready to marry me." Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. Outside the door, a crowd had gathered to watch the commotion. My personal maid, Daoyin, rushed in with an urgency unlike her usual self, anxiously saying, "Miss, that penniless wretch has come to our house to propose marriage." Her eyes were full of disdain, but I was simply stunned for a moment. Because I had transmigrated back from dying of illness 20 years later, it wasn't until I was about to die from illness that I realized I was merely the villainous supporting character in a Mary Sue novel. Existing solely to create trouble between the male and female leads, no one truly cared for me. Not even my own parents favored Luo Cece, the female lead who was fostered in our home after her parents passed away and who suffered from chronic illness. My parents often said how wonderful it would be if Luo Cece were their daughter, yet they never truly saw me, their own flesh and blood. Even when I lay dying, they never once came to see me. I just never expected that the one to finally see me off would be Xu Huiqing, the very person I had humiliated in countless ways when he came to propose. As I drew my last breath, a single clear tear fell from his eye, landing precisely on my cheek, and now, in the bronze mirror placed before me, a tiny crimson mole had appeared where that tear had fallen, glaringly conspicuous. My heart clenched in response. With this thought, I lifted my skirt and said, "Let's go out and see." The crowd outside the mansion was jeering. Xu Huiqing, trapped in the middle, looked extremely awkward, dressed in coarse cloth. The betrothal gifts he held were worth no more than 10 taels, yet it was everything he owned. "Miss Li, I've come to propose marriage." His voice was quiet, his tone deep. It was clear he was unwilling. Someone deliberately wanted to tarnish my reputation, so they found Xu Huiqing, whose family had fallen on hard times, to humiliate me. Besides the male lead, Zhu Yuan, I couldn't think of anyone else. The entire Upper Kyoto knew that I, Li Xianchun, spent every day chasing after Zhu Yuan. He found this annoying, but sometimes, to make Rosie jealous, he would respond to me or even send someone to fetch me. Of course, I never saw him once I got there. Rosie would always burst into tears of anger at these times, and he would rush to console her, pushing all the blame back onto me, retaliating and venting his frustration on me. Just a tool. I only realized that before I died, as a male supporting character with considerable focus in the book, Xu Huiqing should logically have fallen for the female lead like the other male side characters. Yet he was a strange exception. My gaze lingered on Xu Huiqing, who averted his eyes when they met mine, but I saw embarrassment in his expression. I lifted my head and descended the stone steps. The surrounding laughter and chatter never ceased. Just wait for the show. With that unruly daughter of the Li family who once learned some shady martial arts from disreputable folks in the countryside, if they don't beat her with sticks, I'd say Li Xianchun has been replaced by another soul. If this wretched troublemaker had provoked Miss Luo, who was raised in the manor, Miss Luo, kind-hearted as she is, wouldn't have lashed out like that man-eating Li Xianchun. Hearing others mention Luo Cece, Zhu Yuan indeed stepped out from the crowd. Pretending to have just passed by, he said, "Oh, it seems I've arrived at an inopportune moment." What a poor performance. Inopportune. Quite the opposite, it was perfectly timed. Zhu Yuan was certain I would rush to his side as before, eager to please him. He took the most conspicuous spot, waiting to see me make a fool of myself. Yet I didn't even glance at him, ignoring everyone's reactions as I walked straight to Xu Huiqing. Xu Huiqing's face registered surprise. My actions had caught him completely off guard. My reputation is terrible, so it would be perfectly reasonable if he expected me to slap him in a fit of anger right now. Yet, I smiled and said to him, "Xu Huiqing, I've accepted the betrothal gifts. Get ready to marry me." Xu Huiqing was too shocked to speak, but Zhu Yuan was the first to object. No, he was furious, for today's incident had been entirely his own scheme. It was simply because he envied how the tutor at the Zhu family's private school praised Xu Huiqing excessively, so he wanted to find some other fault with him and see him humiliated. Xu Huiqing was a distant relative of the Zhu family and originally had no right to study alongside the Zhu children. But with old Master Zhu's special permission, no one else dared to say much about it. Only Zhu Yuan had always been dissatisfied with this arrangement. Today's action serves a dual purpose. It humiliates me as well, but Zhu Yuan hadn't anticipated how events would unfold. "Why not?" I frowned. "This is my marriage, and it has nothing to do with you." Zhu Yuan clearly still thought I was acting out of spite. Just yesterday I had been utterly compliant with him. Li Xianchun, his family is dirt poor, and he has a gravely ill old mother at home. Are you trying to jump into a pit of fire by marrying him? Besides, your marriage isn't something for a young, unmarried girl like you to decide." At this moment, I found myself somewhat bewildered by Zhu Yuan's sudden impatience. What concern was my future to him? Moreover, Xu Huiqing's future was bright. 15 years from now, he would rise to the rank of prime minister. Only now I've become rather impoverished. Yet I don't understand why he returned 20 years later to see me already cast out by my family and dying sick in a derelict temple. The confusion in my eyes seemed to baffle Xu Huiqing as well. "Madam Li, trust me, I'm serious. Give me the marriage certificate." I broke into a smile. He bit his lip. "I didn't bring it today." It wasn't that he hadn't brought it, he hadn't even held out hope, so he simply hadn't written one. "Then write one now." I deliberately made things difficult for him by handing the task to a roadside scribe, paying 50 coins to borrow his brush, ink, paper, and inkstone. Xu Huiqing lowered his head to look at me, pressing his thin lips together. "I'll repay these 50 coins. I laughed. "Fine. Pay me back with interest after we're married." He nodded solemnly, as if he had promised something of great importance. "Madam Li, I'm starting to write." He was still hesitant because of my attitude. After all, my reputation was terrible, and I was truly not a good match. Perhaps, he was also afraid that I would regret it. At this thought, I smiled inwardly. "Li Xianchun, oh Li Xianchun, you've had little interaction with him. The reason for today's encounter is all because Zhu Yuan forced it. How presumptuous of me." Yet, meeting his gaze, I still said, "Very well. I've heard from others that your studies are excellent. Someday, I'd like to become a Jincha's wife." Zhu Yuan hadn't left yet and sneered from the side. "Placing your hopes in him, have you gone mad?" I shot him a sidelong glance before turning to Xu Huiqing. "Could you?" After a long moment of contemplation, Xu Huiqing finally nodded again. "All right." Throughout the entire exchange, his expression remained indifferent, yet there was an air of bewilderment about him. Only in these impoverished youth days would he be like this. Wait another 15 years, and nearly everyone would have to look up to him, second only to one. I wonder if what I'm doing counts as taking advantage of someone's misfortune, but being a gentleman, someone like me simply can't manage it. Before Xu Huiqing could finish speaking, my cousin Luo Cece emerged. She had recently fallen ill and was being supported by her maid. As frail as a willow in the wind, her lips pale and her face lacking color, she coughed a few times before saying, "Cousin, are you troubling others again?" Hearing her voice, I turned to look at her with a smile. "No. I'm discussing a matter of great importance in my life." I didn't like her. I didn't like how she took away my parents' love the moment she arrived. No, not just took away, it was our already limited love being completely drawn to her. Nor did I like her perpetual goody-two-shoes act, standing beside her. People always compared us as fairy versus demoness. My existence was merely a tool to highlight the protagonist's halo. My eyes couldn't help but fill with resentment. Luo Cece was accustomed to this. She could sense my hostile gaze, and a hint of confusion crept into her tone. "What major life event?" I let out a laugh. "I'm going to marry myself off, so I'll never be in your way again." If I were an outsider, even I would find my current behavior utterly absurd. Marriage has always been decided by parents since ancient times. No one would be as reckless as me, but I traveled back in time, and I clearly know what my future looks like, on the surface. Luo Cece married a profligate man like Zhu Yuan, but because Zhu Yuan returned to the right path, she gained a title. In the inner chambers, she fought tooth and nail, often narrowly escaping death, but ultimately became the victor. As for me, my parents married me off to a high-ranking family's son whom I had never met. It seemed glorious, but after marriage, I suffered greatly. That man indulged in debauchery, and when drunk, he would beat and scold me. Later, he became addicted to gambling. Lost all his family fortune, and even pawned me off to pay his gambling debts. The fate of a female supporting character is always so tragic. But since heaven has given me a second chance, even if I stumble and fall, I will not repeat my past mistakes. I refuse to be used as a tool for networking with the powerful again. Even if I have to jump into a pit of fire, it must be of my own free will. A complex expression appeared in Luo Cece's eyes, and the jade pendants on her waist clinked together with her cough. "This is not right. Don't be foolish. Your aunt will be back soon. Don't mention this to her." I remained silent, only smiling. That little maid by her side was nowhere to be seen now. I could probably guess she'd gone to report to my parents. Such incidents were far from rare. The onlookers had been dispersed by Zhu Yuan, leaving only a few of us now. I looked at Xu Huiqing and whispered to him, "My parents will be here soon. If you want to leave, go now." They would never agree. Scolding and humiliation were inevitable. Facing the only person who came to see me off at my deathbed in my past life, Even someone as notorious as me didn't want to make things harder for him. Xu Huiqing's reaction, however, was beyond my expectation. A barely perceptible hint of disappointment flickered in his clear eyes. Madam Li just now used her reputation to help me out of a difficult situation. It was my fault to begin with. This time, I still need to stay and explain everything clearly to your parents. It turned out he still thought I was joking when I said I would marry him. After thinking it over, I put my hands on my hips and said, "What's there to explain about my ruined reputation? As for you, since you've already agreed to marry me, yet you're playing the victim and claiming I've reneged, I think you originally had other motives and came here to humiliate me." "Absolutely not." Xu Huiqing immediately retorted, his gaunt frame held ramrod straight. "Madam Li has already shown me kindness. How could I harbor any intention of shaming her?" I spread my hands. "All right then, you stay here and apologize to my parents." To fob me off, he'd concocted any excuse, even one about kindness. Since the age of 6, I, Li Xianchun, had made those who mocked me cry for their mothers and fathers, and the moniker of bully had been famous ever since. Even those a few years older than me would steer clear. At the age of 12, I was brought back to my parents' side and entered the capital. At the spring banquet, I beat those noble ladies who secretly ostracized me until their hairpins scattered, and from then on, no one dared to associate with me. After that, I shamelessly pursued Zhu Yuan, becoming the laughingstock of the capital. I am not a good person. Xu Huiqing was taken aback, although he couldn't quite grasp my intentions. He readily agreed. "Xu will." The sunlight shone on his faded coarse cloth clothes, and his thin body stood in front of me, shielding me from the heat. Zhu Yuan stood aside, a servant fanning him, looking every bit the dandy. He used to be eager to cater to Luo Ci's moods, but at this moment, his entire focus was on me, eager to gloat. "Li Xianchun, it's only been a few days and your temper has grown considerably. Because I ignored you, you actually want to marry someone like this. Let's see how your parents deal with you when they return." I gave him an eye roll. He didn't take it to heart, probably still thinking I'd shamelessly try to please him like before, and that this was just a tantrum. But after experiencing so much in my previous life, when I came back, I almost couldn't even remember his name. In less than the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the carriage slowly came to a stop at the entrance. It was precisely the time when my parents were supposed to return. They didn't come back because of me, but as soon as they got out of the carriage, their first act was to shut the door and furiously scold me for disgracing the Li family. Xu Huiqing tried to explain, but I stopped him. But I couldn't stop him. "Today's events are all my fault. Lady Li was merely trying to help me out of a difficult situation." "He's still so stubborn." My father's face was grim, yet surprisingly, he didn't take his anger out on him. "Don't I know what kind of person she is? Never mind, never mind. Let's pretend today's foolishness never happened. Don't ever appear before her again." Xu Huiqing was also surprised by his attitude. "Why?" My mother then explained the reason. "Xianchun, we have found a good marriage for you now. From today onwards, you should rein in your temper. Your father and mother will no longer concern themselves with your past follies." I sneered inwardly. Just as she was about to scold me, she changed her tone, revealing that she had found a new match for me. Thinking back, it was around this time in my previous life that they told me a prestigious family was willing to marry me, claiming it was a blessing I wouldn't receive in 10 lifetimes. But only after I entered their home did I learn that the man had contracted a hidden illness from years of debauchery in brothels, and as this news gradually spread, no respectable family's daughter would marry him. Now, by marrying me off, they not only got rid of a daughter with a bad reputation but also gained an opportunity to connect with influential figures. They really had it all figured out. It was only when my mother's gaze fell upon Xu Huiqing that she impatiently asked, "And who are you?" Luo Cici, holding a round fan, looked as if she was thinking of my well-being and said, "The person Cici mentioned to Auntie. Xianchun is confused, but I hope she can think clearly." I looked up, a smile playing on my lips. "Are you trying to marry me off to the 4th son of the Zhong family in the west of the city?" My mother exclaimed in surprise. "How did you know?" My father waved his hand. "Since you know, just quietly wait to be married off." "Absolutely not." This voice wasn't mine. It actually came from Xu Huiqing. He had always been proper in etiquette, yet today he repeatedly breached decorum, his handsome face filled with concern. "That 4th son of the Zhong family is truly not a good match." The remaining words, despite all his years of scholarly study, he couldn't bring himself to say. Even Zhu Yuan, who usually teased me, spoke up. "Indeed, that Zhong 4th, he didn't finish his sentence, frowning instead. I suddenly remembered that Zhong Sai was a frequent visitor to brothels, and Zhu Yuan had once been one of their companions. No one understood Zhong Sai's character better than Zhu Yuan. My father's expression darkened as he showed them the door. Our family affairs are none of your concern, he said. Outsiders knew about it, so they only needed to do a simple check to find out what kind of person Zhong Jiosai Lang was. I clenched my fists. There were things I wanted to say in my previous life. And now I finally had the chance. I bit my lip, then suddenly looked up, my voice catching. The outsiders you speak of all know that Zhong Sai's character is despicable. Don't you know it too? I am your daughter. You don't investigate a man's character, only seeking to cling to power and influence. Are you even my real parents? My father was enraged by my words. He raised his hand and brought it down in a slap. You scoundrel! I was about to duck away, but Xu Huiqing was a step ahead of me. Shielding me with his body, my father was fuming, pointing at him and scolding. Is this how you talk to your parents now? Have you been corrupted by these unsavory characters outside? I never properly disciplined you when you were young, but today I'll make sure you learn your lesson. His last sentence, however, was not untrue. Ever since I can remember, I was left at the rural estate. They were busy at the time, pulling strings to buy official positions, running around everywhere, with no time to look after me. So, when those children called me a wild child with no parents, I dealt with it in my own way. No one taught me not to fight, and no one stood up for me. But I never resented it. I only hoped they would take me in soon, so I could be loved by my parents like everyone else. Later, my wish came true. They finally remembered they had a child left in the countryside and brought me to the capital. But still, no one looked after me when I caused trouble. They would just scold me irritably and hand me over to the servants. The servants dared not speak too harshly to me, nor did they dare overstep their bounds. Over time, I became the person I am today. By the time I could tell right from wrong, my character was already set, and it was too late. I steadied myself, pulling away from past memories. I won't marry. Then I turned around and looked at Xu Huiqing, saying, I want to marry him. There was no doubt that my father was furious. He ordered his servants to lock my door and keep a close watch on me, but that was no challenge for me. After all, I had always been lawless. It only took the time it took Dao Yin to bring me food at night for me to sneak out. Xu Huiqing was greatly shocked when he saw me appear. It was the dead of night, and I simply leaped into his yard. He had finished his studies and was about to blow out the candle, but he stood there, book in hand, lost in thought for a long time. What are you thinking about? I reached out and waved my hand in front of him, meeting the surprise in his pupils head-on. You, I raised an eyebrow. He started the conversation, apologetically saying, I wonder if Miss Li was punished later because of me. I brought it upon myself. It has nothing to do with you. I only came here to ask him one thing. Does your promise to marry me earlier today still stand? I didn't know what happened after I was locked up, and I was worried he wouldn't keep his word. His gaze shifted to the book in his hands, the dim candlelight flickering unsteadily. If you don't regret it, then I'll take it as done, he asked again, his face showing the same reservedness I'd seen earlier in the day. It's just that I'm not well acquainted with Lady Li, and besides, my family is poor. As you can see, why would you want to marry? Following his words, I looked around. The house was bare, and even his study desk showed the marks of time. Who knew how many hands it had passed through? But it was clean and tidy. Although the walls had cracks, they had all been carefully mended. I said from the bottom of my heart, because I think you're a very good person. No matter how wealthy a family is, if its owner is extravagant, it will eventually be ruined. I've already experienced this firsthand. Upon hearing this, Xu Huiqing's eyes trembled slightly. Miss Li is also an excellent young woman. That's a strange thing to say. I've never heard anyone describe me like that before. Out of the corner of my eye, I suddenly caught sight of a copy of The Legend of the Heroine *. Its pages well worn, indicating he had read it. I can't believe you actually read this kind of leisure book, I said, a little surprised, having always thought he only read the classics. I once owned the very book you have in your hand. I greatly admire those women. Before I was brought back to the capital, I too yearned for the carefree life of a chivalrous hero, just like in the books, but that was ultimately unrealistic, going against the gaze of the world. It's quite a coincidence, actually. I just happened to pick this up, he said, offering me the book. As I reached for it, my fingertips brushed against his, and there was a warmth. My heart tightened, and I quickly withdrew my hand. My face flushed slightly. Li Xianchun, you've never been shy about climbing over someone's wall, so why are you timid now? I secretly clenched my fingers. Xu Huiqing's fingertips trembled slightly, his ears turned red, and he hastily placed the book on the corner of the desk. I've left the book here. Feel free to take it. He paused, then suddenly added, actually, Lady Li is just like the person in the book, a chivalrous woman herself. That inexplicable remark made me recall my previous life, and I felt an urge to ask him if he had met me before, but before I could speak, suddenly, there was another stir outside the courtyard. I turned to look and saw a kind-faced woman. It was Xu Huiqing's mother. after she understood the situation. She made Xu Huiqing apologize to me. Huiqing was wrong in this matter. Marriage is a big deal, and it was improper for you to go to her house yourself. It was even more wrong to ask a young lady to meet you late at night. Then she looked at me. I don't know which family you are from. My son is not usually such a reckless person, but he handled this matter improperly. If our families are a good match, I will certainly prepare all the betrothal gifts and rituals, and send a matchmaker to propose marriage. Their family fortunes declined when Xu Huiqing was a child, too young to remember. His father passed away early after achieving scholarly honors. The money and property that should have ensured a stable life were seized by his uncle. Listening to his mother's admonishments, I couldn't help but shed tears. Shouldn't ordinary parents all teach their children this way, pointing out his mistakes, telling him how to do things correctly, and offering reasonable solutions? But all I heard growing up was either scolding or a casual, "Let her be." By the time Xu Mu finished speaking, my eyes were brimming with tears. I said blankly, "I really envy you, Xu Huiqing." But even as I left, I still didn't ask about that incident from my previous life. He and I had absolutely no connection before, but if you were to ask him in this life, he wouldn't be able to give you a reason why. He might even think I was possessed by an evil spirit. I sullenly shut my mouth. When I returned, Daoyin came to give me a heads up. Rose went to my room to look for me. But Daoyin found an excuse to turn her away. After all, I usually didn't care for her, so she didn't notice anything unusual. When I finally saw her, a scent of medicine wafted towards me. It was truly difficult for her. Her illness had worsened, yet she still came to persuade me to marry. It has always been a matter of parental decree and matchmaker's words. Today's little squabble won't be taken to heart by anyone. You must not anger them again. Oh really? Did anyone ever care about my feelings? I laughed coldly. Do you know how much I envied you? I saw you and my second aunt when I was a child. They cared about you, disciplined you promptly, and taught you to distinguish right from wrong. This light once shone on me too. When they saw me, they also taught me meticulously. But it was too short, unable to straighten me out after I had already grown crooked. I paused, then continued, "You can't possibly understand how I feel. After second aunt and second uncle passed away, my parents took you in. Sometimes, I even feel like you're the real family. After they took me in, they found me difficult to discipline, so they never put any effort into me. The tutor they found for me was an ignoramus, just there to fill a spot. But when you arrived, they quickly hired a new tutor. That's when I realized how many characters I had learned incorrectly. Did they not know before that the previous one was a mediocrity? It's just that they felt there was no longer any need to properly raise me. But you were different. Even my education, it was only after someone who had briefly taught me some martial arts at the village estate mentioned it, that I, wanting to improve myself in the eyes of the world, begged and pleaded for it. We are clearly of the same age, yet they casually married me off to a scoundrel who frequented brothels, while for you, they meticulously chose a husband. Fearing that marrying down would mean an unsuitable match, and marrying up would mean you'd suffer, it was only later that Zhu Yuan used some tricks to marry her, but my parents' hearts were completely devoted to her. Luo Cece averted her gaze, remaining silent, yet I continued to ask aloud, "If it were you my parents wanted to marry off, would you marry?" She heard about Zhongjio's fourth son and pondered for a moment. We can't decide on matters of marriage." I couldn't help but laugh. In my previous life, I was also married off so obediently. I stepped into the abyss, and have been stuck in the mud ever since. But at this moment, I said, "But you love mountains and rivers, you love herbs, and you are proficient in medicine. If I were you, I would travel everywhere, healing the sick and saving people." She became a doctor after a long illness, but this illness was inherited from the womb and could not be self-treated. Sometimes she would secretly go to the medical clinic to help. For someone as rigid as her, what else could it be but passion? Luo Cece said "Oh," and asked doubtfully, "How did you know?" I rarely mention it to anyone. I shrugged. Naturally, it's because when you dislike someone, you'll secretly pay more attention to them, and then you'll naturally know. None of your business. She shook her head. But aunt and uncle have already set the wedding date. You can't escape it. Even if I can't escape, I'll still try. It's my choice. I'd walk through fire and climb mountains of blades if I have to. I didn't choose it. Even if I were to die again, I wouldn't set foot there. In the middle of the night, a strong wind suddenly rose, rattling the doors and windows. In a haze, I dreamt of my past life again. Before I died, my entire body had festered, and foul blood mixed with my decaying flesh and bones. Xu Huiqing still held me tightly until I breathed my last. His pristine white robe was stained with blood, yet he seemed completely oblivious. His eyes were filled with sorrow and sincerity, as if he had known me for a long time. Slowly, he uttered, "Missed it again." He helped me collect my bones, though I was already dead. He stubbornly reattached my severed tendons and brutally dismembered Jong Sai, the man who sold me. His expression was one of such ferocity that I had never seen before. Yet I felt no fear. Snow began to fall in front of the morning hall where the coffin rested. The weather was bitterly cold, and few people came and went. He even found my parents, who had long since disowned me, and invited them to my funeral. Both of them looked unwell, not daring to breathe deeply. A daughter married off is like water poured out. We haven't had contact with her for a long time. Why bother calling us old folks here to suffer this torment? Ever since Jong Sai's downfall, a prominent family completely collapsed. With no one left to cling to, they severed ties with me. Before I was sold, I had sought their help. Many parents in the market, out of love for their daughters, would take their married daughters back home, but they were not among them. They merely said coldly, "I'm already married off. You should have come." The wall light glowed faintly, and the air was chilling. Xu Huiqing's expression was terrifying, his words devoid of warmth, his breath condensing into frost. "You owe her." Yet when my parents saw how I'd ended up after obediently marrying as they demanded, there wasn't a trace of remorse in their eyes. They merely muttered, "Coming to collect debts even after death, what bad luck." At last I understood they had never loved me. Not from the very beginning. I raised my hand and decisively wiped away the teardrop that had somehow escaped the corner of my eye. My mother came to see me early in the morning, to check if I was quietly staying in my chambers. When she saw that I had no intention of resisting anymore, she stroked my head. "Xian Chun, be good. Ever since you came to the capital, you haven't given us a moment's peace. Now that a good family is willing to take you in, we can finally rest easy." "Heh, such a person, considered good." I dodged her touch, turning sideways, and asked coldly, "I know, I was raised freely from a young age, without proper guidance from parents. And my reputation isn't good, but compared to what a man like Zhong's fourth son did, I can truly be considered pure and untainted. If I were a man, would you still blame me for being bullied and fighting back against them, saying I shouldn't act unlike a proper girl, without distinguishing right from wrong?" She was instantly speechless, not to mention that Zhong Sai, just Zhu Yuan, he indulged in a life of debauchery outside, a complete rake, yet in the end, he was matched with a woman like Luo Cece, who could be considered the most proper woman in the eyes of society. Yet no one said they were ill-matched, only that Zhu Yuan had settled down after marriage. A prodigal son returned, to Luo Cece's advantage. "Where did you learn to be so sharp-tongued?" My mother didn't take in a single word, instead retorting angrily, "A woman should naturally be docile. With your rebellious ways, where's the proper demeanor of a young lady? This will lead to trouble sooner or later." I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. Docile, it was precisely because I was too docile that I ended up like that. In my past life, I was obedient and compromising. The first act of obedience was when they made me marry. I married, thinking that by suppressing my true nature, I could live a peaceful life. But what awaited me was endless beatings and abuse. They told me I couldn't fight back, that I just had to endure it. I endured, but was sold into servitude. Zhong Sai, fearing my resistance, had someone sever my hand tendons. That was the second time I was forced into submission. After that, the occurrences were so numerous, I couldn't even count them anymore. What kind of end? She didn't understand what I was saying, nor did she want to hear another word from me. As she left, she merely tossed out, "In any case, you marry well this time, and your life will only get better and better, no doubt about it." Sunlight streamed through the window lattice, but it didn't fall on me. I raised my head, smiled at her, and replied, "All right, I'll marry him. When the time comes, I'll surely give them a grand gift." She nodded in satisfaction. "That's more like it." Seeing how docile I truly was, they no longer restricted me from going out. I finally don't have to sneak out in the middle of the night. Students emerged from the private school one after another. I waited for a long time, but I didn't see Xu Huiqing, but a familiar voice called out, "I told you Li Xianchun would come back. Look, she's rushing to beg me again." Zhu Yuan's sneering laughter was particularly grating. "What a pity. Despite your terrible temper, you're quite good-looking, yet you're matched with Zhong Sai." I ignored him, lifting the curtain to see when Xu Huiqing would emerge. Zhu Yuan persisted relentlessly. "Li Xianchun, I originally planned to marry your sister first, then take you as a noble concubine." Hearing this, I turned around to glance at him. "When did my cousin ever say she'd marry you?" He wore an expression of absolute confidence. "That's none of your concern. I have my ways." Zhu Yuan suddenly beckoned me closer, as if he had something else to say. Suspicious. I leaned in, only to hear him whisper like a growling dog in my ear, "That Zhong Sai is just as fickle as I am. We often play together. After you marry him, I could reluctantly take you in and meet you often. Don't worry about him finding out either. I've got women to keep him occupied on my side." What shameless audacity! Before he could finish speaking, my fist connected squarely with his right eye. "You vicious shrew, how dare you hit me?" He clutched his face in panic, his right eyelid already swelling as he cursed at me. "This first punch isn't the only one you're getting," I snarled, brandishing my fist. "This second one is for my cousin." Though I didn't like Luo Cece, I despised this playboy even more. He simply wasn't worthy of her. Ju Yuan initially talked tough but soon began begging for mercy repeatedly. Word of the street fight spread quickly, and Shu Huiqing heard the commotion. I beat Ju Yuan until he fled in panic. Not realizing when Shu Huiqing had quietly appeared behind me, I was still holding up my fist when I caught sight of Shu Huiqing. Startled, I lowered my fist and hurriedly explained. He was spouting nonsense. Giving him a few punches was already going easy on him. Shu Huiqing's expression held a trace of surprise, but more than that, amusement. No doubt, he knew Ju Yuan's character well and found it satisfying, but seeing me act so savagely, he must have felt a twinge of fear too. Before he could speak, the man standing beside him opened his mouth, pointing at me with a look of pleasant surprise and asking, "Could this lady before us be the heroic maiden you spoke of?" Shu Huiqing's cheeks flushed slightly as he gave a gentle nod. The man beside him was likely his close friend from school, studying me carefully, trying to discern my expression through the white veil of my hat. TSK, impressive, daring to strike even that spoiled Jew family brat, truly a heroine among women. I froze for a moment. This was the first time someone had praised me for fighting well. "You flatter me," I said with a faint smile, though puzzled. "But what do you mean by heroine? I've never done anything particularly chivalrous." The man glanced at Shu Huiqing and laughed heartily. "I say, how could your heroine forget that she once saved you? Hurry and explain. So she remembers you." Suddenly, I felt completely lost. Saved him? I don't remember that. Shu Huiqing's eyes were full of anticipation. Autumn of the Guiwei year, Fengshu Mountain. His friend had something urgent at home, so he left first. I stayed put, racking my brain, searching through my memories for a long time. I had indeed been to that place. It seemed that my copy of the heroine's tale was lost somewhere around there. At that time, bandits were raiding the mountain. And it happened to be when I was teaching a lesson to a few wicked servants who refused to give me water and deliberately oppressed me. My anger flared up, so I took action. Just a trivial matter, a life-saving favor. How could it be trivial? Shu Huiqing said. I waved my hand. It was nothing more than beating a few extra people, just a casual thing to do. Moreover, he collected my body after death and took over my tendons. This kindness has long outweighed any debt. Suddenly recalling something from my past life, I blurted out, "Did you agree to marry me just to repay a debt of gratitude? Sacrificing your entire life for the sake of repaying a favor, it's simply not worth it." Shu Huiqing's voice grew softer, and by the end, I could barely make out his final words. "That was part of the reason, but," I took 2 steps closer and asked, "But what?" Taking a larger stride, I now looked up to see his raven feather lashes clearly visible, but his Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed his words. "About Zhong Sai last time, he's no good man. I knew it early on, so I came to find you." So he hadn't come to propose marriage after all, he just wanted an excuse to see me, to warn me. A sudden sense of loss welled up in me, but I still feigned composure. "I understand, all of this is just to repay a debt of gratitude. Since that's the case, what happened last time?" Actually, he suddenly cut me off, then seemed to swallow his words. After much deliberation, he finally spoke. "Actually, I've been in love with Lady Li for many years." Having spoken, he felt a great weight lifted, yet in an instant, he grew nervous again. "I know that the current Shu Huiqing is not worthy of Lady Li, but just give me 2 years. In 2 years, I will surely pass the imperial examination and keep my promise to make you a scholar official's wife." My eyes widened. His words were so sincere that I felt a little ashamed. Before, I had only wanted to use him to escape the marriage contract with the Zhong family. A voice suddenly appeared in my mind. "Say yes to him. Why don't you admit that you like him?" I vehemently denied. "You're talking nonsense. When did I ever like him?" The voice mumbled. "Then tell me, why do you sneak out in the middle of the night? And why did you come to see him first when you were able to go out? Your mouth is truly harder than iron." I was instantly at a loss for how to answer. In my hesitation, my gaze suddenly met a pair of eyes full of affection. My heart was pounding, as if it would burst from my chest. It seemed I truly did like him. I whispered, "Then marry me, and never regret it." He said, "It is my heart's desire, and I will never regret it." In an instant, he became serious again. "I'll find a way to stall the Zhong family, just give me time." So that's what had him frowning. I laughed. "No need, on the day of my wedding, you just need to be ready to marry me. Oh, and please make sure your mother isn't around." I was afraid she wouldn't agree. That would be disastrous. Shu Huiqing didn't approve of my plan. "But how would your family ever agree?" I scoffed. Heartless and unfeeling, they ceased being my family long ago. The Lee family will soon cease to exist. As for family, consider that I never had one. He's witnessed how my so-called parents sold their daughter for personal gain. Not only do they want to sell me, but they also want to sell Luo Cece. Ju Yuan's uncles and cousins all hold official positions in the court. Somehow, he obtained a gift list proving my father had once bribed officials. When this item was presented before my father, his face turned deathly pale. Ju Yuan agreed to burn the gift list, but frivolously proposed a condition to marry Luo Cece to him. Although my parents had carefully selected a husband for Luo Cece over a long period, Ju Yuan, being a dissolute playboy, was never in consideration. Their efforts seemed well-intentioned, yet now they were unhesitatingly ready to send her away. By the time I returned, Luo Cece had already accepted the matter with composure. I strode in and blurted out the day's events. Your precious son-in-law still tries to seduce married women. Luo Cece had long known of his misbehavior, but even she was startled this time, sighing repeatedly in dismay. My father tried to slap me again, but I blocked him with my hand. You, a girl, saying such things. Do you know how shameful and disgraceful it is? I sneered, the one who said it doesn't feel ashamed, so why should I, the one repeating it, feel ashamed? You, he gasped for air and started cursing my mother. This scourge, you planted the seed from the beginning, and now she dares to be so rebellious and speak to me like this. My mother remained silent, which was truly unlike her temperament, probably a guilty conscience. But what was she feeling guilty about? I laughed again. Regretting giving birth to me in the first place. My mother's eyes darted away, and my father remained silent. Their reaction was identical to the day I asked them if they were my biological parents. I took a deep breath and asked, so, I really am not your biological daughter. They still said nothing. But I have something to say. You call me a scourge, but do you still remember a line from the *3-character classic that ordinary children learn during their enlightenment? If the child does not learn, it is the father's fault. Given how I've turned out, can you truly claim no responsibility? My mother's expression grew increasingly uncomfortable. She muttered, stop talking. Standing alone in the central courtyard, isolated and forlorn, I said, my cousin is your real daughter, isn't she? Finally, my mother spoke. Her face shifted through various emotions as she asked, when did you find out? When did I realize that the three of them always looked more like a family, and I would forever be an outsider? Those children who bullied me in my youth were right about one thing. I was born of a mother, but not raised by one. So I was born of a mother but not raised by one. How was I to know? Cousin, you have Auntie's affection, and since coming to the capital, you've had their care too. I was just guessing, I didn't expect to be right. Haha, so that's how it really is. My heart suddenly clenched, a tearing pain, a ringing in my ears, incessant. I took a moment to compose myself, the ringing in my head unabated. Then I want to ask now, where are my biological parents? My father's face showed no trace of shame. When Cece was born, I asked a Taoist priest to cast a divination. He said that if Cece stayed at home, it would affect my official career, so we swapped her with the second aunt's child. Rose was too shocked to speak, still reeling from the revelation. She had never imagined this could be the reason. Does second aunt know about this? I asked, biting my lip. My mother lowered her head. Your second aunt doesn't know. Aunt was actually my mother. I repeated these words over and over. I could have received proper upbringing. I needn't have become a woman scorned by society. I could have avoided marrying such a despicable man and meeting such a tragic end. But, my mother suddenly added, though we switched you with Cece, we never deprived you of food or clothing all these years. You've never starved or frozen. That already puts you above many in this world. What they meant was, there are people worse off than me in this world, so my suffering doesn't count. Yet none of this was what I was meant to endure. With a choked voice, I asked, why are you telling me all this now? In the end, it's still just to make me obediently marry into the Zhong family and secure your interests. My father completely ignored the pain before his eyes. As if he hadn't heard what I just said, he continued to focus on his own gains. Even if we didn't give you life, we raised you. Consider this as repaying our kindness. Repay their kindness, I will repay it indeed. Luo Cece, who had always been obedient, suddenly spoke up. You are my biological parents, my mother. With tears in her eyes, nodded, yes, only after your second sister died could I bring you to live with us. You've truly been wronged. I watched the ridiculous scene from the side and laughed. Bring her back, then send her away, and then let her suffer again. My mother used all her strength to persuade her. Cece, the Ju family is a prominent household. Although Ju Yuan is a bit wild right now, since he's willing to go to such lengths to marry you, he must be sincere. If you marry him, he'll settle down after marriage and treat you well. I couldn't help but interject. marrying a good woman to a wild scoundrel, and then expecting her to gamble her entire life on the possibility of him changing his ways. Don't you think that's ridiculous? Men and women are different, you're too young to understand that. My mother tried to brainwash me again. The Jong family is also a prominent family, they won't mind your bad reputation, and they won't mistreat you in the future. Reasoning with them was pointless, I never expected to see them repent in the first place. I smiled faintly. Fine, I'll marry, but after this, consider all ties between us severed. What an ungrateful wretch we've raised. My father stormed off in a rage. The wicked never have a repentant heart. They only righteously accuse others, demanding why they won't compromise more for their benefit. Alas, their interests are about to be shattered. When I left, Luo Sisi was still there. Only then did she snap out of it, unable to help worrying about her own fate thereafter. I really did think about marrying Ju Yuan. After all, it seemed like he would truly settle down for me. She glanced at me, then her gaze shifted to the distance. But what you said last time, I thought about it carefully when I went back. I'm frail, but I'm still young and my body is relatively healthy now. I can still walk those famous mountains and rivers, and I really want to see them, I said. Then go see them. She was clearly tempted, but then she sighed. But marriage is a woman's destiny. I should still get married. So foolish. But then I thought again, it took me a lifetime of death to realize that worldly opinions are far less important than one's own true feelings. She just needed time. Hadn't figured it out yet. A month later, on the wedding day, Li Xianchun, after applying her bridal makeup, took the hand of the bridesmaid and stepped into the wedding sedan. Today was also Luo Sisi's wedding day. The two sisters were to be married on the same day. The sun was setting in the west, its dim yellow light soft and warm, yet a major incident occurred in the Zhong household. Just as they were about to welcome a new bride into the home, a man had taken her place inside. The man struggled desperately, shouting that he was the seventh son of the Zhu family, that he had been knocked unconscious by villains and brought here. It must be that Li Xianchun. When I get out of here, I'll skin her alive. What a pity. Zhong Sai had already drunk too much, his vision blurred and his ears ringing incessantly. He knew this woman forced into marriage was wild by nature and unwilling to wed him. Today was supposed to be the first night with the top courtesan of Chunfeng Pavilion, but this woman had ruined his chance for a romantic encounter. Zhong Sai felt inexplicably restless and irritable, without even lifting the bridal veil. He shoved her down onto the bed, in the throes of passion, though he sensed something unusual. The 5 minerals powder he habitually used made him care only for relieving his burning desire, unwilling to dwell on anything else. The person beneath him initially struggled, but when their shouts proved futile, they gradually fell silent. It wasn't until the next morning when the maids came to prepare the bride that they saw clearly lying on the bed was actually a man. The young maids had never witnessed such a scene. Startled, they screamed, drawing the entire household to behold this absurd spectacle. Only then did Zhong Sai realize with shock that the figure lying beside him wasn't his bride at all, but unmistakably a man. Upon closer inspection, the man was none other than Zhu Yuan, the seventh son of the Zhu family, with whom he often spent time in revelry. What are you doing here? Zhong Sai was filled with suspicion. Who am I, and who are you? Zhu Yuan wasn't angry. Instead, he kept laughing foolishly. The servants whispered among themselves. This man must have gone mad. He still reeks of 5 minerals powder, probably damaged his brain from overuse. There's a man in the new house. Where is Lady Li now? I heard that Lady Li received help yesterday and is currently at the Dali Temple. At the same time, Lady Li filed a lawsuit, accusing her parents in court. In her hand was a gift list. Evidence of her father's bribery of officials. According to the law, a child accusing their parents was a grave crime of filial impiety, punishable by hanging, while the parents could be considered as having surrendered themselves and be acquitted, but the Li family's daughter spoke out. They are not my parents. A wandering fortune teller once declared that their own daughter would bring them misfortune. On the day I was born, merely half an hour apart from their own child, they switched us. Before I turned 12, they never cared for me, and after I returned to the capital, they never raised me. Without giving me life or raising me, how could they be my parents? These words left the world in shock. Upon closer inspection, it was indeed so. Li's parents were sentenced to exile, and 3 days later, they were banished to Lingnan. I've come to marry you. You must have waited a long time for me. I knocked on Shu Huiqing's door. The phoenix coronet and robes of rank I had been wearing were discarded and burned on the road, replaced by a set of light, comfortable clothes. Shu Huiqing's furrowed brow smoothed, and a hint of joy appeared in her eyes. Not long, I had some things to attend to, which is why I'm a little late. My fingers twisted through my hair. Earlier, before Luo Sisi entered the bridal sedan, she had carefully sought me out after much deliberation. Xian Chun, she said, I want to live true to my heart for once. so I found a few men to knock Ju Yuan unconscious, fed him the 5 minerals powder, and stuffed him into Zhong Sai's wedding chamber. Zhong Sai was fond of consuming 5 minerals powder and often lost his senses by the time he could clearly see the person before him. The deed was already done. I handed her the travel pass I had bought at a high price earlier, along with 2 sets of men's clothing and several dozen taels of silver for the journey. These were originally prepared for myself, but now they found a good purpose. Luo Cease's health had improved significantly these days, looking no different from an ordinary person. I used to envy how freely you lived and yearned for a life beyond these walls. Now this freedom has truly come to me, thank you. Xian Chun, she suddenly burst into tears and hugged me. After this parting, I don't know if we'll ever meet again. We will meet again. Someone said I'm a knight-errant, and a knight-errant naturally has to venture into the Jianghu. I gently patted her back and slowly said, as your sister, I hope you are happy and joyful. Me too. She wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes. What happened before? I know you meant well for me. Having a sister who was always getting into trouble, she only restrained me in ways she thought were reasonable, with good intentions. I asked a trusted friend to escort her out of the city, watching as the carriage shrank to a tiny dot and gradually disappeared from view. Later, I still received letters from her. After several twists and turns, she ended up on the battlefield, saving lives in the army, but her true identity as a woman was discovered by a young general. He helped her keep it secret, and over time, the two became husband and wife, and I recognized my birth parents as my own, under the witness of the Luo family. With all the traditional betrothal gifts and ceremonies, I married Xu Huiqing once again. He wasn't surprised when he learned that I had once planned to end all this, take my travel pass, change my name, and wander the world. I asked him why. He said, "You were always a heroine at heart, so this makes perfect sense." I laughed. "But now I don't want to leave anymore, because you're here," Xu Huiqing replied. "If you wish to go, you still can. I'll always be waiting for you right here." After that night, the Zhong family naturally came to interrogate me, but I was merely a pitiful woman who had escaped from villains and was already married to another man. The marriage contract Xu Huiqing originally wrote for me as proof. My parents just want to marry me off again. They never thought highly of the Li family's status. And now that the Li family is gone, they don't want to be associated with such bad luck anymore. Zhong Sai didn't suffer any losses. Ju Yuan suffered considerable losses and went completely mad, having committed numerous misdeeds and offended many people. He now faced countless others eager to kick him while he was down. Among the many descendants of the Ju family, he had always been the least promising. Now that he had gone mad and become useless, he was cast aside like a discarded pawn. Outside the window, sunlight flickered past in the blink of an eye, while within the room, the shadows of flowers shifted silently before the seated figures. 2 years later, Xu Huiqing indeed achieved top honors in the imperial examinations, ranking third as Tanhua. When the news arrived, I was practicing staff techniques in the courtyard. Hearing it, I wasn't surprised, because I had already lived one lifetime. I knew from the start that he would come in third in the imperial examinations. Xu Huiqing wasn't the least bit surprised to see my lack of astonishment. "My lady, strangely enough, I had a dream a few days ago." I raised my eyes with a faint smile. "Do tell." "I dreamed that day you didn't accept me, but instead, I immediately let out 2 dry laughs, driven out with sticks." He didn't speak, which meant he assented. I continued to ask, "If it really happened that way that day, would you resent me in your heart?" "No," he replied seriously, without teasing me. Then Japan was my reckless rudeness, my impatience that threw me off balance. I was wrong first. Then what? I propped my chin on my hand and stared at him. "In my dream, I tried to save you several times, but missed each time, until one day in a ruined temple." His expression was sorrowful, and he couldn't bear to continue. I had already let go, so I continued his words. "That day in the ruined temple, my body was covered in sores, and I died of illness. You arrived just then, my lady. Did you have the same dream?" I nodded, took his hand, and guided it to touch the small mole at the corner of my eye, whispering softly, "This is your teardrop." It wasn't a dream, but truly a past life we had lived. This time, we didn't miss each other. I smiled with curved eyes. "Right." He tightened his grip on my hand. "Since we've met, I'll never let go of your hand again."